you seem pretty deep on a lot of subjects, but you can't get as deep as you want on every subject. So you've now taken this integrator role of bringing those people together and creating a department. So tell me a little bit about that process of going from a one-man translator to a group of translators and how you're approaching that.
Well, so the initial thought process behind a group of translators were to find people who were experts in their area. So that being, get a guy who's an RCDD, he understands cabling, because that's the first side of it. Get a guy who understands access control and security, CCTV. Get someone who understands AV. And between the three of them, cross-train, because those systems are now talking to each other. Your AV system is no longer just amplifiers and speakers. It's now network. You have room schedulers. Your audio signal is actually going across the network to communicate. And so the cable guy, needs to understand that. Your AV guy needs to understand he's now having to ask for IP addressing and IP address schemes. And so getting those experts in their areas and then cross-training them for them to at least have a basic knowledge of what the other is doing as a construction company, because in some cases they exist a little bit within companies. AV guys are starting to understand technology. Cabling guys, they don't understand anything else. They just put cable in. But then you have your IT guys, who most IT guys that I have come across don't understand the infrastructure that's behind them either. They know switches and routers. You give them a switch and a router, they can program them, but they don't know how the backbone was put together. And so getting that cross-train knowledge so that people begin to understand one another, that was the first aspect. And then from a construction side, tying that to construction, when do you bring those guys in? The traditional is IT, I'll just use cable guys. They showed up at the end. Well, that's not the best time for them. We need them on the job now, because I'll put it nowadays, you can't get your elevator inspection without the network working. You can't get your fire alarm without the network working. You can't get your security system without the network working. And I'll go one step further. You can't get your building management system working without the network working. And so it then became, what do we need first? One of my big challenges is still getting the traditionalists and the electricians to understand that at the same time that you're building electrical rooms, which is always one of the first things we build, you need to build the IT closets right alongside them, because the minute you turn on power, we need the IT closets, right? And to build those IT closets in a way that allows that IT infrastructure to start getting installed. Electricians can run disjointed infrastructure between rooms, and then, and I'll use a loose term, wire nut them together, and then boom, you've got electricity. You can't do that with IT. You have to run end to end. You've got to pull your fiber. You've got to terminate it. You got to go from this room to that room, et cetera, et cetera. And so sometimes as an industry, we tend to be pouring concrete the night before we turn it over, right?
Yeah,
IT doesn't work that way, right? You've got to have it working. Nope. I had a project some years ago that had a 90-day system acceptance test. And what that meant was everything had to be functional. They had to operate as if the building was ready to go for 90 days. If something happened on day 89, you started the clock over.